So you asked me to think back to when we were dating. There's one thing that stands out in my mind vividly, is that we were very competitive with each other. I remember us going and getting a pizza, and they have those little pepper flakes on the table, the hot peppers.
Hot peppers.
Hot peppers.
Yeah.
And I remember us sprinkling on the pizza, and then we were both trying to see who could eat the most, and we were eating handfuls of those peppers. I don't know what on earth possessed us while we were doing that, but that's what we were doing.
Yeah.
And reminded me also of when we went camping, and we were carrying heavy packs. They were probably maybe 40 pounds each.
Yeah.
And we decided to see who could walk the farthest. Neither one of us wanted to say we were ready to quit. And so we carried those packs, and we walked and we walked and we walked. I don't know how far we walked, but it was a long ways carrying those heavy packs. Neither of us wanted to give in.
How in the world can a man and a woman be living together in perfect peace? You know, you have all these things that people desire, that we desire, I desire in a home, you know, permanent stability, safety, security, peace, all these things. And to have that present in the home, and yet a man and a woman who is so very different, to bring two people together, that's Genesis 2:24. Man's going to leave his mother, leave his father. He's going to cling unto his wife, and these two shall become one flesh. To have that one flesh experience, where a man and a woman are united, well, you look at the divorce statistics and you can see that kind of experience is rare. I'd like to suggest one reason is because in the educational system today, we don't teach the essentials. We don't really teach about agriculture, how to grow food.
Tomatoes can get kind of boring if you grow the same thing every year, but there's thousands and thousands of open pollinated varieties where you can save your own seed.
We don't really teach about how to construct a home, how to put a roof over your head. You know, food, clothing, shelter, the essentials of life. I didn't learn about that in school. But you know, there's another essential, and that is preparing for marriage. The only word I know to describe the first 10 years of our marriage was catastrophic. It was not a good marriage. But Darlene and I have been married for 45 years. Now, the last 35 years, it's been a little heaven on the earth. The Lord changed our hearts. He gave us a home, and He can do that for anybody. So the essentials, they don't teach it in school. You can't learn it in the classroom. I mean, how can you learn to trust? How can you learn to love? How can you learn to be dead to self? How can you learn these things in a classroom, looking at a chalkboard? You can't do it. These are lessons of life that you learn by experience. Now, you hear that saying, popular saying, home sweet home. Well, it raises the question, what makes it sweet? I'll give you just one or two things that makes my home sweet. In my house, I don't have to put on airs. I don't need to have any affectation. I don't need to be false. I can get up in the morning, I can be myself. I can be who I am. I am very, very at peace and comfortable with my wife. We sit down at a meal, I can just be who I am, and Darlene can be the same way. There's no need to put on a front. There's no need to try to be something that we're not. That's the kind of atmosphere that people want in a home. They can go in and just, let their hair down and be at rest and enjoy peace. Now, Martin Luther, he was married, the great reformer. He had this saying about his home and his wife. Let the wife make the husband glad to come home, and let him make her sorry to see him leave. When I'm away, my wife has a lot of sorrow, and when I come back, she has a lot of joy. And dear friends, that's just the way it should be, right? That's just the way it should be. Now, it takes a lot of genius to build a space shuttle, doesn't it? Dear friends, it's much more challenging to build a marriage than it is to build a space shuttle. Now, it takes a lot of intelligence to build a space shuttle. It doesn't take a lot of intelligence to build a home, but it takes something. It takes wisdom. Marriage is like a school. In this school, the essentials are being learned. An example, Song of Solomon 6:3. I am my beloved's, and my beloved is mine. Dear friends, that's joint ownership. That's a lesson you learn in the classroom called marriage, and God is the teacher. John 6:45, they shall be taught of God. Okay, the tools of the trade this morning, 2 hands and a bucket of leaves.
That's right.
So what are you doing? You feeding the tomatoes? What are you doing?
Well, I'm smothering the weeds, hopefully.
All right.
And feeding the tomatoes at the same time, and also feeding the earthworms. You know, the earthworms love leaves.
Yeah.
We've had more earthworms since we started putting leaves down. I can't believe how many earthworms there are.
Yeah.
And the weeds get squelched, and then they become food for the worms also as it dies.
Yeah.
The leaves, they break down the leaves, and it produces good food for the plants.
Yeah. Where do you get those leaves? You special order them from somewhere?
I do. I special order them from the woods right back here.
Yeah.
And Mr. Lou Keith goes and gets those.
Okay, that's my job today. What do you do with those weeds?
I just take them and just lay them down.
Okay.
So. Also, there's a few ticks in these leaves that you need to de-tick when you go in the house after doing this.
Yeah. It's a lot more difficult to weed the heart than it is to weed the garden. And my dear friends, the weeds crop up in the heart just like they do in the garden, uninvited. So the life lessons that a husband and wife learn inside this school called marriage, they're invaluable. And when you learn it in the home, you can take it outside the home and benefit greatly by it. As you relate and interact with people around you, whether it's in the workplace, the school, the home, the church, wherever it is, the lessons learned in the home can carry over into society and make the world a better place. And if you're going to have healing and help in the world, it begins right in the home, and of course that begins in the heart. Now, there is a plan. The plan never fails. Plan never fails because God never fails. Malachi 3:6, I am the Lord, I change not. God is changeless. His dictionary does not include the word failure. But you can't work God's plan unless you know it. Now, is this a Christian perspective of which I speak? Well, yeah. I tried all the different perspectives. I tried all the different methods. I tried everything under the sun. And last but not least, I gave God a try. I was 35 years old before I opened the Bible, 35 years old before I got a serious interest in God. And my dear friends, that is the day our marriage began to change. It's the only way that works. So if you're not viewing things as a Christian, that's okay. That's okay. You can still get some help. You know, I was involved in health ministry, and we used to tell people, look, if you work the plan will work for you. People would say, well, I don't believe in God, I'm an atheist. I say, okay, you can still work the plan. You get up, you exercise, get on a good diet, you get to bed early, you drink your water, get rid of the junk food, bring in the good stuff. Here's the plan. If you do not believe in God, God says in Matthew 5:45, He makes the sun rise on the evil and the good. And in this kind of a scenario, the marriage, if you're not a Christian, you can still get some help. You can't get the fullness of the plan, but dear friends, you can get some help. And as far as I know, this is the only one that works. And when you get some help, generally it gives us a desire to get more help. And the more help you want, the more help you need, the more help God gives. So when you think about preparing for marriage, you know, I've had people tell me, look, I'm getting serious about this. I think I may need a husband or a wife. I say, look, first thing in the morning when you wake up, if you're married, you see your face of your wife. You go to breakfast, you see your wife. You go to work, my wife and I work together. So at work, I would see my wife. Then you go to lunch, there Darlene is again. My wife's name is Darlene, right? Darlene. I go back to work, there's Darlene. Come home, there's Darlene. Go to bed at night, last face I see is Darlene. I call that constant contact. Now, is that a blessing or a curse? It depends. Marriage can be a make or break, right? It can make you or break you. And it has an influence on your eternal destiny. Can the wrong woman lead a man in the wrong direction? And vice versa, can the right woman point a man in the right direction? Absolutely. So first decision to be made, a man and a woman, you know, is Is this going to be a democracy or a theocracy? Now, in a democracy, the majority rules. But a husband and wife, they got one vote each. If they don't agree, it's a deadlock. It's hard to unlock a deadlock. How are we going to do it? Well, dear friends, that's when God comes into the picture. And then democracy gives way to theocracy, where God is in charge. What kind of potato is that, honey?
These are bush or bunch Puerto Ricans. They go by both names.
Bush or bunch Puerto Ricans. We'll be having some of those on Thanksgiving, won't we?
These are very sweet. They cure very fast.
Okay.
So we may be having some before Thanksgiving.
All right. You know, Matthew 4:19, Jesus is addressing Peter and Andrew. And he says, come, follow me, I'll make you fishers of men. Dear friends, that's a commission God gives to all of his sons and daughters. My first work is to catch my wife. You know, there are many fish in the world. Of course, the fish are souls. Many fish in the world, but the first fish that the man should catch is his wife. Because the missionary field, the first missionary field, begins at home and begins in the heart of his wife.
And I just take it, dig a furrow, and just lay this whole stem in there like that and cover it up and keep them watered. You may notice these don't really have any roots, but they'll form roots in the ground. That's the easiest way. You can root them in water or dirt beforehand, but this is a lot faster and easier if you can keep them wet.
Well, where do you get the slips?
You mean the potatoes?
No, the slips.
I'm growing them.
How?
How? I plant the sweet potatoes. See in here, you just take a sweet potato. There's a ladybug in there, probably looking for aphids. You just plant the sweet potato a little bit, halfway down, and see it's got roots all in there. It puts out roots on the bottom side, and then it grows these slips on top.
Like that.
I don't know if you can see closely, there's little roots coming out along the stem, so it'll not only, these are nodes, and it'll put out roots not only at these nodes, but also all along the stem on sweet potatoes. So this will just root heavily. Some of those will go down, they'll make big sweet potatoes, and then that's what we dig in the fall. When those are mature, we'll dig those sweet potatoes, let them cure for a few weeks. I just set them on the shelf. That's an easy way to do it.
Looking for a sweet potato pie for Thanksgiving.
Okay, I hope you'll get one.